Hello, welcome back to our series working with Weebly. In the previous lecture, I showed you how to select a theme and how to change your theme. In this lecture, I want to focus on customizing your theme once you've chosen it. So as you see here, I've restored my website to its original form and have deleted all of the elements that were there. So the first thing I want to do is change the background of my home page. Now, in order to do that, I need to have an image that I want to use for my background. So unless you're planning on using your own photos, you need to be aware of choosing a photo or image that is royalty and copyright free. So many websites house these sort of images, and in this week's supplemental material, I have given you several links to websites that offer free images, high quality free images. So one of those is freeimages.com, and so I'm going there, and before you can use this website, you have to create a free account. So you click on sign up and you fill out all of this information and you click on sign up. Once you do that, you will get an email from them explaining that you need to activate your account by clicking on this link, and then your account will be ready to go. So then you can go back to free images, you can click on sign in, and you can put in your name, your username and password, and click on sign in, and then you're all ready to start using free images. Now, I mentioned that I wanted to customize my website. What's important here is that you need to have a concept. What is it that you want to do with this website? So I have this concept that I want to change. I want to make this website a website that is for events that in my case are going to be specialty cruises. I want to organize specialty cruises for friends and family and make it into a business. So my theme should have something to do with cruise ships. So I type in here cruise ships and I do a search for an image related to cruise ships, and I scroll through here and I find an image that I like for my background. So I click on it. I then click on download, and in this case give me a choice. Do I want a smaller version or do I want the full version? I want the full, so I click on that and I download that. Now I can go back to my website, and how do I change the background image? What I want to do is in build mode, anywhere on this page, just click on the mouse twice and then edit background. If I click on edit background, I'm going to get a prompt. So I click on replace. I find my photo by clicking on update photo, and then I want to go to where I've placed this photo. So it's in this folder. I click on that, it uploads, and I now have a new background image. And if I scroll up, you can see the whole image that's going to appear on my website. Now I click on save, and I've got a new image. Alright, the next thing that I want to do is set up my pages to match my idea or my concept. So I click on pages. Home is fine, we can leave it that. I don't want blog, I want something else. So I'm going to click on that and I'm going to just change the name to cruises. Now you can see I can do some other editing here. I could decide whether or not to have a header. We can change whether or not the page is public or private, or whether it requires a password. We can also do some edits here which I'm not going to worry about right now. Let's just keep this simple. I can also copy a page or delete a page. So the only thing I want to do at this point is change the name. So I do that, and then I go back and I do the same thing with portfolio. I want to call it something else, so let's call it gallery. And then I also want to have a contact page, so that's fine. And then I want to add an additional 2 pages. So the first one, I'm going to click on the plus, and then I'm going to have it as a standard page. I'm going to call it FAQ, and then click on done. And then I want another page, standard page, and I'm going to call this mailing list. Click on done, and I am finished now with all the pages that I want to have on my website. Alright, so let's return to home. Now, what I want to do as a second customization, I want to first off change the text here of my header page or navigation, and I want to put in the name of my business, which is Tom's Specialty Cruises. And I also want to put in my phone number. Alright, so I've got that information now, so it's going to appear here on the home page. Okay, now that we have created the pages that we want to have in our website, we need to start building the website. So what you want to do here is use the tools that I talked about in the basic elements or in the advanced elements lectures and start building your website design. Keep in mind the principles of good design that we learned in Information Design 1, because they also are going to be applicable here to our website. So I'm not going to repeat all the basic elements, but I am going to put in a couple just to show you something about how we would update fonts. So the first thing I want to do is I want to create a title. So I bring over the title icon and I click on it, and I'm going to say just repeat the name of our business here, and I want to move this a little bit, drag it to where I want. Oh, it's not going to let me. Alright, we'll just leave it there for a moment. And then I also want to add in some regular text. Let's just drag it over to here. Let me do that either. Okay, we'll drag the text to here, and we can see this. We could type in something, just any text, and we can see that that's not appearing very well, so we could highlight it and change the color to something that will perhaps stand out better. We need to probably go something bolder than black. So let's see what red does. No, it's not going to work either. So we this kind of thing that you really need to play around with until you get used to using it. I'm going to try that. See what happens. I think I just deleted it. Alright, it looks like the only color that's really going to work with this background is white, so let's just make it a little bit bigger so it stands out. Alright, so we have now our admittedly not very well designed title and subtitle. I want to just show you how to change fonts is what this is really leading up to. So in order to change the font, we have to return to theme. And then on theme, we can click on change fonts. And you can see where I have the ability to change different kinds of fonts on the different titles. So here, for example, we have three elements that we could change the font on. The first is the navigation menu. If I hover over the navigation menu, then down here you see blue lines. That's indicating what is going to be changed if I make any changes. The next is headline, which you see Tom's Specialty Cruises is outlined here, and the subheadline is the other text that I had put in. So if I want to change the font, for example, of my headline, I could click on that, and it's currently using the font Oxygen. I could change that to something else depending on what fonts we have installed here. Let's just do something that you can just so you can see how things change. I'm not saying these are great fonts for my website. That's where the design element has to come in. I kind of like that one. And then for just any text, again, you need to be conscious of the of your fonts that go well with each other. Again, I'm going to pick something that probably doesn't go at the moment. I have to do some research here to pick the right fonts, or you could just do it by eye if you want. But as you learned in the non-designer's design book, fonts do go well together, should be used and not have any conflicts. So here I've just showed you a basic on how to do that. You can change the size and the weight and the color here as well. You can turn on uppercase, for example here. If I turn on uppercase, then my text goes all to uppercase. If I turn it off, it goes back to lowercase. And then you can add line height and spacing as well. If we go back to the headline, uppercase is already off, so that's not going to change. But now if I go back, it will. So those are some of the things that you can do with changing font. Other than that, the next thing to consider is just actually building our web pages using good design principles, which we'll talk about in the next lecture.